credit cards versus debit cards. Which is better? Which is better for you? Welcome to Faith, Finance, and Freedom. Here I encourage you and give at least one action step to move you towards freedom, especially financial freedom, because once you've gained financial freedom, then it's much easier to pursue your dreams. So I'm going to share a question that was sent in to me and give some proactive tips against fraud. Here's the question. I was listening to one of your podcasts. You said a credit card is what you'd use before a debit card. Could I ask how you decided that? I'm wondering if debit cards in the US are different than in Canada. Ours links to our bank account and is like using cash. Looking forward to hearing from you. Okay, so there's a lot here. This was sent in from Canada. I'm in the US. I don't know the Canadian structures for their finance system. However, I'll tell you this. Credit card companies are multinational. They are global and they operate in a similar way, no matter what country you're from. That said, as I'm from the US, each individual state and also different countries may have certain regulations that could be different. So you're going to want to check the paperwork when you get a credit card. This is all from one credit card. It's a lot of paperwork to go through. However, it's going to give you specific answers. It's going to help you make a decision on what is better for you. I'll give you some examples of fraud that happened to me personally. In 2000, back when I was on dial-up, I found a charge on my credit card. It was somewhere between $300 and $500. It was a place I obviously had not shopped at. It was an online purchase. I knew that I did not purchase it. My husband did not purchase it. I called the fraud line. They figured out it was obviously fraud. So I wasn't charged for it. They took care of it. They figured out somebody in China made the purchase. And that blew my mind. But they took care of it. I had another situation where I had a large amount on my credit card. This was maybe 10 years ago. And I disputed it. It was a company that I had purchased things from. I purchased services, classes for my child. And I upped him for another year. I paid a whole year in advance, and they canceled his class. So I'm supposed to get a refund. Instead of giving me, which I read the fine print, they said there's no refunds unless they cancel the class. They canceled the class. Well, they moved him into a completely different class that taught completely different things with an age group that was like several levels below his particular age groups. And I'm like, you need to give me the money back because you're not offering the class. Well, they refused. I called the credit card company. They said, we will look into this. We'll look into the contract. We will talk to the business. The business had an opportunity to fight it, and they really wanted to fight me with this money. In the end, I had my paperwork. I showed it to them, and I did not owe anything. However, I did not have to pay anything. This took a good 2 to 3 months for the credit card companies to sort it out. And maybe they would have done the same thing with the debit, but with the debit, the money would have been gone because it's hooked up to your bank and it's just like cash. Can you imagine having a bill that you paid a year in advance that may have been $1,000, $2,000 that you deserve a refund for? and that you're out that money for several months. With the credit card company said, you're not going to pay a thing until we find out what's going on. And then we'll tell you whether we're going to rule in your favor or their favor. So I find a lot of freedom in the credit cards, but I will tell you how to use the credit cards to benefit you, because there can be dangers in credit cards. I understand people don't want to use credit cards because they don't want to rack up a balance. They want to be protected from overspending, sort of like a forced ceiling. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to overcome that. Another thing you have to realize with debit cards is if you travel, if you use gas, the gas company always puts like a pending charge to make sure your credit card has enough, or your debit card, to make sure your debit card has enough funds in it. The hotels, they do the same thing. And if you only have $1,000 in your bank account and you go to a hotel, sometimes they will put a pending balance on. They're going to check it. They're going to say, I want to make sure this person has at least $500 in their account. Hypothetically, I don't know if it's going to be 500. I don't know how long you're staying, but sometimes they can block a portion of your money. They haven't taken it, but it's not usable to you because they've blocked that off. And one hotel clerk has said that, she told me, we always make sure we give a warning to people using a debit card, because once they put a hold on the money to make sure there's enough money in there, and then at the end of your stay, say it's a 3-day stay, then they charge you what they're charging you, that pending amount might not drop off for several days after you've actually checked out. So the money is really yours, but you don't have access to it. All right, does that make sense? So personally, I never use a debit card. I don't have a debit card. I don't have a debit card because I don't use ATMs. I will never use an ATM. I do keep a small spare amount of emergency cash, like $20, in my car or in my pocket or somewhere. And don't use ATMs. I will never have an ATM fee. And ATMs and also gasoline pumps. Have you heard of a skimmer? There are thieves that put something called a skimmer. They put it over that spot where you insert your card. And it looks like a regular, you insert your card, but it skims your information. It skims everything on that magnetic strip, and then you punch in whatever your PIN is, and hackers get that. I do not like using ATMs or even at the gas station. Sometimes you can jiggle things. Sometimes there are ways to find out, is this real or is this a skimmer? So that's a very real thing. I do not use debit cards. However, if you don't want to overspend and you want that ceiling, you can always call the credit card company and tell them to lower your credit limit if you wanted to, or to, there are things you can do so you won't overspend. If a thief steals your debit card, again, I'm just talking here, do you ever give your credit card to a waiter or waitress and they take it out of your sight? There have been people working in the restaurant industry that have skimmed your information. And then you come back, you sign everything. They have your physical card, so they have your security code on the back. Even if they didn't have a skimmer, they could still write down all that information or take a picture with their phone. If it's a debit card and your money's gone, how long will it take for the debit card people to restore your funds? I don't know. I don't have that answer, but look it up for yourself. But with a credit card, it takes 0 time for my funds to be restored because my funds were never taken. It's not connected to my bank account. And that's a huge thing for me when it comes to credit cards. I hope this is helping. I hope this makes sense. Another thing that I do to keep my budget, I check my credit card every week. My son, I told him, check it every week. Sometimes he checks it every other week, and that's still okay. I pay off my credit card every week. I pay it off every week. So I don't have the late fees, and if anything strange comes up, I see it. Another crazy, 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 crazy thing about fraud. You know how you can tap? If you have this little, there you go. That weird little icon, you can tap it. And it's got a chip. That chip is an actual radio frequency that unscrupulous people with the right equipment can and have stolen information. If it's in your purse, they don't even have to pickpocket you. They can walk with a tool, go right by, and that radio frequency is always giving out information. That's how you can tap. And your information on your card can be stolen just like that, and you don't know. So here's some proactive tips against fraud. Number 1, check your statements. Check them every week. It's not going to hurt to check in for 5 minutes and see what's going on with your account and pay it. Number 2, you can set up, most credit card companies that I know, maybe with debit cards too, you can set up alerts. So every time something is charged, your phone rings or you get a text message every single time. Or if you're like, I don't want to get that many notifications, you can set it up and say, hey, if there is any charge over $100, send me a text. Or if there's any charge over $500, send me a text. Or any charge over $50, send me a text. That way you can keep track. This little wallet will protect you against the RFID hackers. This is from Identity Stronghold. So I don't know if you can see that. Identity Stronghold. Somehow they've made cute little wallets, cute little purses, all sorts to choose from. Their own little logo there. And this protects those RFIDs, the signal from going away. So that's another way you can get a wallet that's going to protect your information. So there you go. That's it. Fraud is a big deal. If you're interested, I can also give you tips on protecting against IRS fraud. I'll be happy to do another video. My son, before he was even 18, he got his Social Security number stolen. I don't know how it happened. I don't know if it's weird. And we couldn't even file our taxes because they said we could not claim our own son as a dependent because the tax return was already filed. This happened while he was still a minor. So lots of fraud happens. Let me know if you want me to do something on that sort of fraud. But in the meantime, be vigilant, be aware, stay on top of your finances. I will never use a debit card. I didn't even talk about points and that sort of stuff that can be a benefit to credit card users. I only do credit cards that give a cash back because I don't want to play the games and I don't really care about the cash back. Um, I just, I don't want anybody to have access to my bank account. I don't want links to my bank account. I don't want anything initiated out of my bank account from any company, whether it's a company that wants to do a bill pay or a debit card. Nobody has access to my bank account except for me and my husband. And if money is going to go out of our bank account, I want to be the one to be there typing and initiate it. I do not want any company to just be able to randomly draw things out, even if it's with a debit card, because those debit cards can get lost, can get stolen, can even get stolen if it's safe and inside your wallet, unless you have one of these wallets. So that's it. Definitely a lot more that we could say about it, but be vigilant, be careful, look at all of the information for your credit cards or your debit cards so you know what you're getting into. Write a pro and con list if you want. See what's good for you. Just because I will never use a debit card doesn't mean that I'm telling you to never use a debit card. However, I am telling my son to never use a debit card. So hope this helps. My mission is to help you, help moms and wives in single income households become debt-free within 5 to 7 years. Baby steps done consistently bring big results. So decide what you want, decide what you're willing to do to get it, and I will see you next time. Keep the faith, build your finances, and claim your freedom.